So then we'll move on to the 2007 season.
Yeah.
For you, obviously, a massive season. You know, you think of players that have played for both Hull FC and Hull KR. You know, the great Clive Sullivan. There's too many to reel off here, but I dare say not many of them actually played for both sides within the space of a couple of weeks. It was the season. It was, you know, at the start of the season. Obviously, Hull KR have come up to the Super League for the first top flight season for well over a decade. At what point did it all start to sort of the wheels start to go in motion that you was going to make the Great Divide or cross the Great Divide, should I say? Sorry.
So when I agreed to stay at Hull FC in 2005, there was a 3-year contract agreed. So at the end of that contract, 2008, I was able to apply for a testimonial, and any player that's applied for a testimonial after 10 years service has never not been granted it. So it's a given. It's basically a given. And I knew there was an issue at the club when they were refusing in forthcoming to give a separate document, which meant that the testimonial could be applied for on a certain date. So I went 2 years playing the game uninsured. There was no signed copy of a contract, so I was uninsured. In the game and the set of rules at the RFL, when you agree a contract back then, you have 48 hours to log it with the RFL. Otherwise, they're going against their own protocols, so to not have a signed copy of contract. And it went in the press, obviously, in, I think, June and July, when we was in the middle of the cup run, and it took a weight off my shoulders before we ended up winning the cup that year.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2007, Paul King gets granted his testimonial, and it runs into 2008, which means I can't have mine unless I share it with him, which was never an agreement with the club. During that time, my dad had a friend of his who used to play at Hull KR, who went to Hull KR. My dad never went to watch Hull KR. He only ever came to watch me as his son, and my brother who played amateur at the time. And my dad's friend mentioned to Neil Udgell that I'd not signed my contract because it was playing on my mind what Hull were doing. We had conversations as a family, and this guy ended up telling Neil Udgell, and that's how the wheels started in motion. So I ended up on the Wednesday getting a phone call off my dad, and Neil had contacted him and said, basically, and I don't mean to sound this arrogantly again, it was a blank check, really. I could have asked for any amount of money. They were desperate because they'd lost 7 games straight, and they could ill afford to drop out of Super League with the hit and become one of them yo-yo clubs. So, so on the Wednesday, I went in to see the club. I went in to see Peter Sharp and Richard Agar and Andy Lass, and I said, if this situation doesn't get resolved, I'll resign. I'll leave the club after the weekend. We was playing 2 days later. When I left the club, I rang up Emma Rosewarne at the RFL, and I asked her to get me a signed copy of my contract for me and email it over to me. Obviously, I knew there wasn't a signed copy, but I just wanted to check somebody hadn't played stupid and forged my signature on any documents.
Yeah, of course.
So she rang me back up and said, we're in shit here, aren't we? Because you know full well you haven't got a signed copy of the contract. And I don't know what's happening, but this can't be good for us in the game. So I says, no, I'm going to go to OKR if it doesn't get resolved. I think she spat a tea out at the time or something. And so I warned the club on the Wednesday that if this situation wasn't resolved with a sit-down talk, then I would resign at the following week after the game. So they went away, and Peter Sharp and Richard Agar and Andy Lass, I think they were forthcoming and saying, listen, we'll get this situation resolved. Don't worry about it. We've got a game to play on the Friday night against Bradford at home. So after the Friday night, we had the weekend off. So I asked the club again for a face-to-face meeting. I ended up asking them 3 times for a face-to-face meeting, to which it was not forthcoming from them. And some of the stuff that I was hearing coming out was that he won't leave. He's signed. He can't leave. He can't do this. He can't do that. And that's the worst thing you can do for me, because if you're not going to honour your part of a contract, then I don't feel I should honour mine. And I wasn't asking for any more money. I wasn't asking for anything else. I was asking for what I agreed in 2005, and they were the ones that went against that and reneged on it. So I spoke with Neil Udgell on the Sunday morning after a Saturday night, and he said, what if Hull come back with a £250,000 offer for a year? I says, it's too late. It's done. I've made my mind up now. So I went in on the Monday and resigned, and it's as simple as that. I played my last game for Hull on the Friday night, and I'll never forget it because I knocked on at the back of a scrum when the game was level, and 2 minutes later Bradford scored and won the game. It's a massive regret of mine that sticks in my mind about my last game for Hull, and I was responsible for the loss, and that really grates on me because that was never going to be the way that I wanted to finish. Had the club have spoken to me, I would never have gone to Hull KR. I would never have left the club if we'd have just ironed everything out to a satisfactory, not a satisfactory agreement in terms of any more length of contract or any more money financially, but just give me the testimonial document so that I can get what I'd been planning for 4 years or 3 years since I agreed to sign the contract. So yeah, I ended up leaving the following week, and I didn't train all week from Monday to Friday with the Hull KR team because I was unable to be registered with them because the contracts, negotiations and legalities of it. 5 o'clock on Friday night, I get myself a beer and a McDonald's, and I know that, and then Justin Morgan rings me up at 5:30 and says, "You need to be here at 6 o'clock. You're playing against Huddersfield." And then the following week, we was in Cardiff for the Magic weekend, and it was Hull. So yeah, the funny thing with that was on the way down, we stopped at services, and the whole team was in there as well, and obviously all the supporters. And to his credit, and I love him for this, Peter Sharp came over to me and he just said, "Are you okay, son?" So yeah, there was a huge amount of respect from me to the coaching staff and the players as well. I certainly didn't want to leave the club, but I felt I had no option.